Greetings and welcome to Yarnspirations. I'm Mary Beth Temple for Hooked for Life, and in this video I'm going to give you all my best tips and tricks about mosaic knitting. Now I'm using the Mosaic Herringbone knit throw, and I'm working in Bernat Blanket on a US 13 or 9mm needle, but the tips and tricks I'm about to give you are good for you no matter what mosaic pattern you're working on. So please like this video and subscribe to the channel for fresh content weekly on knitting, crocheting, and other yarny stuff. Go ahead and follow us on all the social media platforms by using the link in the description below. And if you want us to see what you're working on, don't forget to use hashtag Yarnspirations. But now let's look at mosaic knitting. Once again, this video is about the best practices for doing mosaic stitch in knitting, but I am using the Mosaic Herringbone knit throw pattern, which you can get by clicking on the link in the description below. And I am on row 1. If you happen to be following along at home, I already put in a whole repeat of the pattern, which was a 16-row repeat, just so you could see the kind of stuff I was talking about. Now, generally speaking, as a general rule, but not every time, but most of the time, when you're doing this kind of mosaic, you change colors every other row. So there's 2 rows in your A color and then 2 rows in the B, 2A, 2B, etc. So one of the good things to know is that you can let your yarn loosely float up the side. You don't have to cut and have 10,000 ends because it's only 2 rows, and because slip stitch rows tend to not be as tall as non-slip stitch rows, you can just let the color you don't need float up the side. You can cover it up when you put on your border, or frankly you could leave it. It really is not that annoying. So I'm on this row, I am on a right side row, and with A it says knit 1, then it says then we're in the asterisk. It says with A knit 2, 1, 2, slip 1 purlwise with yarn in back. That's SL1PWYIB, which is a very long way of saying I'm going to slip the stitch from the left hand needle to the right hand needle if you're right-handed, vice versa if you're left-handed, purlwise as if to purl. So I'm going to put that right hand needle tip in there like I'm going to make a purl stitch, and I'm just going to move it from the left hand to the right hand without doing anything. And it says WYIB, which is yarn with yarn in back, and that's where my yarn was, so I'm just going to leave that. The next thing I'm going to do is knit 3, 1, 2, 3. Now let's talk for 1 second about the yarn that I brought behind the slipped stitch. You want to make sure that you don't pull it so tight that the work squishes in sideways, but you also don't want it so loose that you are catching on everything. And the fact of the matter is this: when you first start doing these mosaic patterns, your instinct is to overthink those floats. As you get into a rhythm, you'll find that it's pretty simple to just allow the rhythm to dictate how loose or how tight you pull that. Now it says slip 1 purlwise with yarn in back twice. So I don't want to go through 2 stitches because, again, for some reason it makes the work scrunch up sideways, and we don't want that. So I'm going to slip 1 with purlwise with yarn in back, and then I'm going to slip the next one purlwise with yarn in back. It just keeps the work neater, and that is a best practice. Then it says, in my case, it's repeat from asterisk, yada, yada, yada. So let's do that again. We're going to knit 2. I'm going to let that yarn float behind those 2 stitches. Slip 1 purlwise with yarn in back. Slip 1 purlwise with yarn in back. My yarn's already in the back. Knit 3. 1, 2, 3. Slip 1 purlwise with yarn in back twice. 1, and then 2, not 2 together. Repeat again in this particular pattern to last 2 stitches with a knit 2. 1, 2. So then on my next row, which is a wrong side row, let's take a second to look at these floats. You can see them. They're just all hanging out. They're not too big, they're not too small. They are just hanging out behind the work. And when you block, of course, that will even out completely. But that's what it's going to look like on the wrong side. So the phone rings, the dog barks, the kid cries, you have to go away, and you come back and you go, oh, I can't remember what yarn I was going to use. You're going to use the yarn that's available to you. If you're on a wrong side row, this is all there is. So you don't have to go, oh, was it A, was it B? It's A, because A is the only thing that's waiting for you. The other trick to remember, and again, this is not 100% of the time, but it's 99.9% of the time. When you're on a wrong side row, if you slipped it on the right side row, you're going to slip it again on the wrong side row. That is 99 times out of 100. So I can follow along with the pattern, or I can just sort of intuit from context. Now that only works on wrong side rows. Right side rows, you're changing the pattern usually. So this is the second row. It's a wrong side row. It knit 2. It says knit 2. Now it says slip 1 purlwise with yarn in front. So I'm going to have to bring the yarn to the front of the work, and I'm going to slip 1 purlwise, which is what I was doing before, and I'm actually going to do it twice. So I slipped 1 and then I slipped the other one. And now my next stitches are knit 3, so I have to get that yarn back between the 2 needles. 1, 2, 3. Slip 1 purlwise with yarn in front, bring the yarn to the front. Slip 1 purlwise, bring the yarn to the back, so I can knit 3. But do you notice, and you can tell because it's a different color, do you notice that the stitches I'm slipping on the wrong side are the same stitches that I slipped on the right side? 1, and then the next one separately. Get that yarn back to the back. 1, 2, 3. And again, your pattern might be different. You may not be working on this pattern particularly. This was just a great pattern to show you some tips and tricks so that when you find a mosaic pattern you want to do, and then at my last stitch, knit 1. Okay, so there's my wrong side with my floats. Here's my right side with my pattern. Now the last thing I want to point out is I'm moving on to the third row in my case. Again, your case might be different, and it says with B. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to drop the A color and let it hang out. I'm going to bring the B color up. Once again, don't pull it so tight that you have a tension issue on the side, but don't leave it so loose that those stitches come out of shape or you leave loops to catch on. And then again, in this case, it would be knit 1. Knit 1 after the asterisk, slip 1 purlwise with yarn and back 3 times. 1, 2, 3, knit 2. Now that one I've got to really pay attention that I don't pull it too tight, because once you get up to 3, that's a pretty serious sized float. All right, so that's all there is for my best tips and tricks on learning the mosaic stitch. I'm Mary Beth Temple for Hook for Life. Have you tried mosaic knitting before, or is this new to you? If you want to show us your work, follow us on any of those social media platforms by clicking on the link below, and use hashtag Yarnspirations so that we can see what you're working on. And if you have any questions, go ahead and leave those in the comments below. We look forward to seeing you back here again real soon. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.